Hello and welcome back to Diddy on Trial from the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Anushka Matanda. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss a thing. We're here every week bringing you the latest news about Sean Diddy Combs in the build-up to his federal trial in May. He's also facing civil lawsuits and it's been a busy week for those as well. Joining me today is our resident criminal defence attorney, Sean Kent. Hi, Sean.
Hey guys, how are y'all doing?
And Rolling Stone senior investigative reporter, Cheyenne Roundtree. Hi, Cheyenne.
Hi, morning.
So this week, Cheyenne, you've been pretty busy covering the Oscars, but and Sean fighting many fires, no doubt. But it's been a relatively busy week for Diddy News in terms of new lawsuits being filed, one against his mum. Cheyenne, could you just talk us through what happened there?
Yeah, so the former kind of co-founder of Bad Boy Records, Kirk Burroughs, he filed a lawsuit early last week against Janice Combs, Diddy's mom. He claims back in the early 90s, Diddy walked into his office with a baseball bat, and the implication was that was forced to sign over his 25% stake in Bad Boy Entertainment. But Janice was the beneficiary. He filed a suit against her and some other companies associated with Diddy at that time. Kirk says that when this all happened, that Janice was fully aware of it, that she knew that he was being unjustly kind of forced out, but then kind of played dumb throughout the years and decades that they known each other. And it was only recently, in the past few years, that he discovered that Janice was allegedly fully aware of what happened.
Is this the first lawsuit we've had filed against Janice?
I believe it is the first, lawsuit that she's accused of being more wrapped up into Diddy's businesses than previously thought.
And Sean, you've spoken before about how suing Diddy at the moment in a civil lawsuit isn't going to do you much good because we've got to get through the federal proceedings first. But Janice Combs, could she sit for a deposition?
She could absolutely sit for a deposition. I think this is going to be a situation where this case doesn't go very far. Why? Because as Cheyenne just mentioned, this is a long time ago. This is a civil case. The statute of limitations, if I'm not mistaken, is 6 years on these types of situations. I think he tried to file suit against Diddy, if I read correctly, at least 2 different times for the same action. They're both thrown out based upon it was outside the statute of limitations. I think the same thing's going to happen on this situation because I don't do good math, but that's well outside the 6-year window in which this case is being brought. And so they're being creative in trying to bring it outside the statute now.
Because they've said they began an investigation last year that brought these facts to light about Janice. Is that where they're getting creative?
That's where they're getting creative. We don't want someone to bring a lawsuit 10 and 20 years outside the scope. The biggest reason is people die, memories are fallible, evidence is lost. And so we want lawsuits to be brought as close or contemporaneous to the action as humanly possible. But the standard that they're relying upon is the knew or should have known standard. And so what they're saying is we would not have known about this lawsuit until now, so the statute of limitations could not have run. The problem that they're missing is what I just said, knew or should have known. So I guarantee the response will be through due diligence and a tad bit of investigation, they should have been able to find out way back in the day that his mom possibly had something to do with it. When we bring lawsuits, and anytime, and this is a great lesson, anytime you've read a lawsuit, if you've noticed that there's like 60 people listed, you're like, why are they listing all of these people in the lawsuits? This is exactly why. So we don't run the risk of missing somebody and then later having to bring a lawsuit 10 days down the road.
Well, look, we haven't had a response from Janice Combs directly about this lawsuit, but Diddy's team have told us this latest lawsuit filed by Kirk Burroughs, filed by none other than Tyrone Blackburn, is another frivolous attempt to relitigate claims that have been repeatedly thrown out of court over the past 30 years. Despite repeated dismissals, Burroughs and Blackburn are intent on wasting the court's time and resources by refiling dismissed claims and now dragging Mr. Combs' 80-year-old mother into this. And that wasn't the only lawsuit we have filed. We also had one filed by Sarah Rivers, who was on the programme The Making of the Band. Cheyenne, can you just talk us through what she alleges happened to her?
Yeah, Sarah was one of the stars of Making the Band, the reboot that Diddy did with MTV. Sarah was the R&B singer of the group, and the group's name is The Band, which is kind of confusing with Making the Band. But Sarah alleges that throughout her time with the show, it was kind of this hellish experience where she had to work long hours. I think everyone remembers when Diddy told them to walk from the back, this Daddy's House studio to Brooklyn and back to get him a cheesecake, which took them hours. So she kind of alleges this really horrible filming experience, but then on top of that, she claims that she was sexually harassed throughout the filming by Diddy, who would make comments about her body, saying that she needed to tighten up. The reason why she was there. The reason why she was there was to, for her to look good. And then she alleges there was an assault, and she says that was a kind of battery where she was cornered by Diddy when she was alone in the studio, and he started talking to her very suggestively and kind of cornered her and then began kind of stroking her breast. She says that she was clearly uncomfortable, and Diddy kind of then backed up and then she fled. She claims that afterward, she was kind of blackballed by Diddy. He disbanded the group in the third season, and she claims she never was really able to find her footing again. And one alleged incident is that she said she had an offer on the table from Capitol Records, and Diddy called up an executive, and that deal went away.
So we've heard sort of similar allegations before that he's wielded his power to make the working environment difficult for other people so that they sort of do what he tells them to do. Sean, once again, we have corroboration of conduct there, right?
You've got corroboration of conduct. A lot of these lawsuits, I think, well, there's no doubt we're going to stop seeing these lawsuits. The filings are officially stopped. The Gender Motivated Violence Act had a timeline on it, which hit, I think, Shine, correct me on February 28th. And so that's why you saw these last filings come through. So they're officially done. But yeah, you have her words, you have corroboration. I don't want to call it a valid lawsuit, but you have an appropriate filed lawsuit from the victim's point of view. The problem is if you watch I don't want to say it the wrong way, but the social media push, and I think I talked about this the first time we ever got on here, when you have one bad lawsuit, or if you have one situation, if you look like the Jay-Z Busby situation, it affects everybody else's lawsuits. So now everybody is now looking at these new filings of lawsuits with a little bit of, is this a good one or is not a good one? New York passed a statute, a Gender Motivated Violence Act. So basically the purpose of this statute is, and keep it as simple as possible, that if you can allege that something happened on you based upon your gender, it's kind of not hilarious when you think about it because men and women are bringing actions against each other under statute. So the gender doesn't really need to be there. But if you make an allegation that somebody attacked you, harassed you, did something on you based upon your gender, the purpose of this statute was to open, and so we're talking about it now, the statute of limitations, and say, we're giving you guys a window. We're giving you a small, and I think it was a 2-year window that you can bring claims from whenever, bring them back. Because what was end up happening is real victims, if you're really victimized, sometimes you're just like, I can't bring this lawsuit right now. I don't want to talk about it. In a Diddy situation, I'm scared for retaliation. He can come get me. So we had this window that it doesn't matter how long ago it was, you can bring a claim within a specific window, and it was 2 years. That window ended, and so the last of the filings from it, however long they were, came forth. And this is something that they passed in New York, specifically to address some weird federal statutes that they had that didn't allow people to bring these cases, and now they're able to bring them.
So this is what Diddy's legal team have sent us about that. They've said this is yet another example of false claims being filed against Mr. Combs. No matter how many lawsuits are filed, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file for any reason. With the deadline for New York's Gender Motivated Violence Act expiring, it's clear that opportunists are rushing to file last-minute, meritless claims. Mr. Combs remains confident he will prevail in court. Now it's time for Classes in Session with Sean and our visiting prof, Cheyenne. We have lots of listener questions that have been racking up. We haven't been ignoring them. We've been waiting for this moment. Thank you so much, everyone, for getting in touch. But please keep contacting us on WhatsApp with your questions, your theories, stuff you want us to unpack. You can get us at +44 330 123 551. Our first question is from Sophie from Australia. She says, thank you for providing an informative and interesting pod on this case. I'm hooked. This is a question for you, Sean. I would like to ask, in light of the Jay-Z case being dropped, legally, will this have implications for any others of Busby's cases against Diddy? Would this case being dropped implicate the other cases favourably or unfavourably? And is there any evidence to suggest he settled or the reasons around the case being dropped? It's quite a big one there. So I guess, first of all, will it impact Busby's other cases that he's brought forward?
I think it already has. It's already affecting because it is making it seem like some of his cases doesn't have merit, that he's not looking into his cases in full detail. Whether it's true or not, it's affecting that. And no, there's no evidence whatsoever this was a settlement. Zero. Less than zero.
There's been a bit of a development there between Jay-Z and Busby's case. Didn't the judge come out and say something that indicated it might actually go to trial?
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's actually, the judge's analysis is really good. They filed him for two things. They filed him for extortion and they filed for defamation. The judge said, this ain't extortion. Lawyers have a right to send a demand letter as much as they possibly want. Move on with that. As far, though, as, and last week we talked about lawyers have qualified immunity or immunity to bring lawsuits. The judge says you have to prove actual malice, that Busby acted with actual malice in the filing of this lawsuit. And he says, look, just failure to investigate a case might be bad lawyering, but it's not actual malice to the point that I can bring a case.
Yeah, and that's not all we've heard from Jay-Z this week, because he's actually now also suing the anonymous woman who accused him of raping her at VMA's after party in 2000, and then, as we know, dropped the lawsuit. So he's claiming, his new defamation action claims his representatives have recently made direct contact with the Jane Doe, and in the lawsuit they claim she allegedly admitted that she made up her claim about Jay-Z and felt pressured by her legal team to repeat it during that interview she did with NBC. It goes on to say that the Jane Doe said it was her lawyer, Tony Busby, who pushed her to go forward with the false narrative of the assault by Mr. Carter in order to leverage a maximum payday. Now, we asked Tony Busby for a statement, and he said, "This case is baloney and has no legal merit. This is just another attempt to intimidate and bully this poor woman that we will deal with in due course." And Cheyenne, there's been a little bit more Busby news. He's filed a few other cases. Could you just quickly fill us in on what he's been up to?
Yeah, so in the past week, with the Gender Motivated Violence Act statute closing, the look back window closing, he's filed a couple more lawsuits from Jane and John Doe, accusers who, again, from the 1990s up until the 2000s, alleged that Diddy assaulted them in some manner during that time period.
We've got another question for you, Cheyenne. Cheyenne said that so I think this is in reference to the investigation that you did. Cheyenne said that Wild King Night parties were not quite the same as Freak-Offs. Can you explain how they were different? Is it just a rebrand? Is Wild King Nights a rebrand of the Freak-Offs, which is consistent with Diddy's pattern of rebranding himself?
Yeah, I think, Cassie alleged what Freak-Offs were something, and then you have Philip Pines, who says that he understood it to be something different. Cassie says that her Freak-Offs always involved a male sex worker, and in Phil Pines' case, he said that he understood that to happen between Diddy and a female guest, and Cassie alleges those were non-consensual. She described those as sex trafficking. Phil says from his knowledge that they appeared to be consensual, and maybe sometimes there might have been other people brought in, but when he was kind of there, it just seemed to be Diddy and a female guest. So those are kind of the differences between, a Freak-Off and a Wild King Night.
Yeah, so they are, you can sort of separate them out in terms of what people have said. But we haven't seen the federal government refer to a Wild King Night in the same way they've used the term Freak-Offs in their filings.
No. Yeah, it's just been Freak-Offs.
I mean, we might get another superseding indictment. I don't know at this point. I'm so baffled by what is going on, because I was expecting, the date to be pushed back, but everything I'm seeing is like, no, we're still going for May. We're still going for May. And one of the things in the lead up to the trial is, of course, picking the jury. Sean, you've had so many comments, particularly about when we spoke about a large portion of the evidence being essentially sex tapes. People don't usually think about the jury, but if you were asked to be part of the jury on this and you said, I just don't want to sit down watching sex tapes all day, I'm not comfortable with that, is that reason enough to be excused?
Yes and no. So what ends up happening is we send letters. I'm going to call them letters. We'll send letters out to prospective jurors. They'll send a bunch of letters out to prospective jurors. The difference between our federal system and our state system, usually in the state system, anybody with a driver's license can get on a jury, which means you get a very large swath of individuals who could be on a jury. In the federal system, it's usually who votes. As you know, less people vote than can drive. And so you get a much more specific civic-minded jury with the federal system. That's one of the reasons why people are always like, your federal juries are more likely to convict because those are more civic-minded individuals who went out of the way to make sure they can vote. So all of these individuals will get these letters in the mail, they'll come, they'll sit down for jury questions, they'll get a large questionnaire before they even get there. And the only thing that really matters is all of that stuff matters if they can answer one question. Can you be fair and impartial? Period. And they can lie. But as long as they ask that question per the Constitution, can you be fair and impartial? And they say yes, they can get on the jury. Now, the defense and the state both have what are called peremptory challenges, which means we can get rid of you for any reasons whatsoever. So if we're reading that thing and we've gone to your social media and we see free Diddy or Diddy's a jerk, you're like, I'm striking that person for cause. I'm striking that person for cause. But after that, anybody can get on.
This is another thing I was going to say. I mean, the social media coverage of this outside of news coverage, the memes, people calling him the diddler, people making memes at Halloween about him, you know, Jack Whitehall at the Brits making a comment, Nikki Glaser at the Golden Globes making jokes. If you'd simply, I don't know, like to comment on Instagram that said something or like to post one of these jokes, would it be enough to disqualify you as a juror? Because it could indicate that you think he's guilty.
Can you be fair and impartial? Yes. I know you have made that comment. I know you have seen this. You have done that. Can you be a fair and impartial jury? And it can't be equivocation. They'd be like, I think I can. No. Yes or no. Yes, I can be fair and impartial. And by the way, remember, it's the defense's job and the prosecution's job to look for those comments, such as you've just said.
Yeah.
And, you know, the clerk of court says, juror number 375, Cheyenne Roundtree comes up. And we're sitting there with our little list. And like, do you remember where she liked this comment, so forth? Yeah, I don't care for that much. Strike her. Your Honor, at this point in time, we move to excuse this juror. And she's out.
So they will comb through your social media presence and they will individually look at each juror's posts, etc., likes, reshares. Wow. So that's going to take a
Some don't. Some just rely on the questionnaire that you send off. But remember, people, and here's the other thing. It's not like when you get the jury summons, it says, oh, by the way, we're summoning you for the Diddy trial. You don't know. You're just getting a summons to show up for court, and you don't know, even though everybody in the world is going to know, wait a minute, this is random that I'm in the Sunny District of New York in May. I wonder what case that could be for. And you show up, they go through your questionnaire. Good lawyers go through all of your background that they can find. And now with the advent of social media, everything you've ever done is online. We can find you.
But isn't that going to take forever? We've only got 2 months.
Yeah. The jury selection in this case could take 2 to 3 weeks. Don't forget the O.J. Simpson trial. These trials were year-long, and the jury selection took a month. We try cases all the time in America. A$AP Rocky, I mean, he got a fair and impartial. I mean, you get juries. He got a fair and impartial jury. And don't forget, this is a video with him with a gun shooting, and he was found not guilty. So we do get fair and impartial juries. It's just hard. Our system has been working for a long time for very public, very famous people. And so it happens. So the system is designed for this situation. So I feel comfortable he's going to get a good jury, a fair jury. It's just going to take a while. It's going to be hard.
The next one we have, Stephanie from Spain has sent us a voice note. She's just watched the Courtney Burgess and Ariel Mitchell speaking on News Nation from a few months ago.
There is an interview of witness that had received a flash drive on behalf of Kim Porter. He just recently testified in court. What he was saying that on the camera, he could see clearly like there were 2 to 3 minors, male minors, that they all seem to be under the influence of drugs. So why is this video not counting? I don't get it.
Okay, so that's Courtney Burgess allegations made on News Nation that he has flash drives that include the freak-offs and he's seen what he believes to be minors in them. Cheyenne, can you just remind us, Diddy has responded directly to this interview that he did with Ariel Mitchell, his lawyer. What did he say?
I mean, Diddy went so far to sue News Nation and Courtney and his attorney saying that's defamation, that these videos do not exist. He's been adamant that he's never sexually assaulted anyone, minors, men, women. This was the first time that Diddy sued someone for defamation, and was specifically over the claims that Courtney allegedly possesses some of these videotapes. And, no one has seen them beyond Courtney and I think his attorney acknowledging these videos. He said he testified at the grand jury, but I mean, prosecutors aren't going to confirm that he did. He just showed up outside and he made a press conference. So, yeah, he claims he's seen them. Diddy says they don't exist, and he's now suing him for defamation. So it should all come out in the wash of what these purported videos are.
Is it fair to say, sure, that if Courtney Burgess has handed over this evidence that he claims to have with minors in it, we would have maybe had a superseding indictment that added on a sexual assault charge with minors? I mean, surely if he had that, that would be evidence of that crime.
I've always said if there was credible evidence to that, and again, I haven't seen it, I don't know the evidence, but I've dealt with the federal government for a very long time. They love the path of least resistance. And if there were identifiable minors who they could identify, talk to, interview, verify, then that would have been the easiest case. Just somebody saying, I've seen the video and they appear to be minors is not enough. Just period. And the federal government, again, path of least resistance. And so if they could identify minors in the video, 100% there would be an additional charge. That's the one thing that's very interesting about this thing is this is the United States of America, the federal government. And for some reason, they have chosen not to bring a single minor charge. So even though all those allegations are there, they didn't bring one. And the strongest defense to this case will be these are all consenting adults. But just because the video's out there, we haven't seen it. Maybe the government could see people in there who appeared to be young, but couldn't find them, couldn't identify, couldn't talk to them, couldn't verify their ages. I don't know. Haven't seen the video.
So as far as we know, it's only him who's seen these alleged tapes. I mean, they technically could not even exist at all. So him going on News Nation and saying that that's what he saw doesn't mean that's true in any way. And that's definitely what Diddy's defense team have reflected. They told us that Ariel and Courtney have been fueling a media frenzy, fabricating outlandish claims and stirring up baseless speculation, vying to outdo each other in a shameless competition to draw attention to themselves with no regard for the truth. In this pitiful spectacle, all pretense of objectivity has been abandoned as a global audience feasts at the all-you-can-eat buffet of wild lies and conspiracy theories. Defendants are among the worst perpetrators of this offensive scenario. I mean, most of us will remember that statement, especially feasting at the all-you-can-eat buffet. And they came down really hard on Ariel and Courtney. And that was after they started to see some of the evidence that the federal government had. They then filed that lawsuit. So lots of people were then saying, well, maybe they saw what Courtney handed in and it just absolutely verifiably isn't what he said on News Nation.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to sound like a Dave Chappelle skit, but given in 2025 with artificial intelligence and things of this nature, the federal government is very specific on verifying information. Just because you send a video and say, this is what it proposes to be, they verify it, they check it, they look. And if they can't find this so-so person and talk to them specifically, they're not bringing the charges.
Yeah, and I will say I have seen a lot of AI images. I mean, usually I can see them and they look very fake, but some of them I put through like our BBC Verify AI team and they're like, yeah, this has layers and layers of AI generated photos in it, or like stuff they've taken from award shows and put people's faces on top of. So there is a lot of content out there that is just fake. And it's difficult to see, if you don't have a team of people checking it for you, what's real and what isn't. So that's why we have a grand jury and that's why you have the federal government sort of dedicated to doing that. Our last question today is loving the pod. I've just listened to your episode Flown In for Sex. So this was the BBC investigation that Rhianna Croxford and Larissa Kennelly did into the early working culture in Bad Boy. It says this was a record label called Bad Boy. Surely the clue is in the name. I don't think many people would think sex in the studio or workplace relationships would be unusual, unexpected or illegal. And the reference to girls being flown into New York City, I know a lot of girls who would expect the millionaire rap star they are seeing to pay for that. Cheyenne, I think that this is still an important thing. I understand a lot of people have said this about 80s, 90s, early 2000s hip hop, rap culture, studio culture. But I think understanding the working practice is really important, or the allegations that have been made about the culture at Bad Boy, because we've heard other things that say it wasn't the most professional environment.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, yes, if it's consensual and, music and this idea of sex, drugs, and rock and roll go hand in hand with the music industry. But at the end of the day, it's still a business. It's still a working environment. And the government is now alleging that that working environment was doubling as a criminal enterprise. And so all of these things come into kind of the scope of what was actually the purpose of that business. Was the purpose of that business to sex traffic people? Was that the purpose of that business to intimidate and control people? And from outsiders or people working there, what were they privy to? What were they unknowingly maybe a part of through that lens? And so, yes, on one hand, the name is Bad Boy. It's music, it's drugs, it's sex, it's all these things that we understand the music culture to be in the 80s and 90s. That still doesn't change the lens of if there was criminal activity going on. That does not give it a pass, especially when women and men are alleging there was non-consensual sex and drugging happening in these environments.
Diddy's legal team said that the BBC had failed to provide them with any substantive details about these accusations, and they said that these allegations lack context and credibility. They said it was impossible for Mr. Combs to present any facts and counter what they described as fabricated accusations, saying that this story is clearly designed to push a one-sided, prejudicial narrative. They also said that Mr. Combs cannot dignify every publicity stunt or absurd claim with a response. And they said he has full confidence in the judicial process where the truth will prevail, saying that these accusations are pure fiction. That's all we've got today for questions. Thank you so much both for joining us. And I'll see you again very soon. I mean, right now, what are we waiting for, Sean? An Enterprise letter or just...
I still think what's hilarious to me is from my sources, neither team is prepared. Neither team is ready. And it's a game of chicken, and that happens a lot. And the defense is definitely not prepared for trial, and the United States is not prepared. But from a defense standpoint, you would rather go against an unprepared America than a prepared America, as opposed to the other way. So neither side is going to be the one who asks for the continuance first. I'm still beyond shocked that this trial is still going in May. So I think as of this point, we're just waiting for the jury summonses to go out. When you start hearing people saying they beat summons, and given the way social media is, you're going to get postings from people saying that they have summoned to go to jury trial.
I thought you're not supposed to say, right?
You're not supposed to talk about the grand jury either, but what has been happening is crazy. Nobody is listening to the rules that I grew up watching. So I'm quite sure you'll be like, I'm coming to that jury.
Yeah. Live streamed from TikTok, honestly, yeah.
No,
well, look, if we get a superseding indictment, if we get anything, we'll be here probably with an emergency episode. But right now, we're still set for May 5th. I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for joining me again today. Cheyenne, thanks for joining.
Thank you so much.
And lovely to see you, Sean. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
That's it for this episode of Diddy on Trial from the BBC World Service YouTube channel with me, Anushka Mutanda-Doughty. But please keep sending us your questions on WhatsApp. You can get us at +44 330 123 551. That's +44 330 123 551. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a thing.